In the winter of 1259, Polish villagers made a discovery that would have terrified them just 20 years earlier. Mongol scouts, frozen solid on their horses in the bitter cold. But instead of fleeing in terror, the locals did something unexpected. They turned these frozen warriors into a marketplace spectacle. For 2 decades, Europe had lived in the shadow of Mongol terror. Now, that fear was transforming into something else entirely. The hunters were about to become the hunted. To understand what happened in Poland, we need to remember what came before. The year 1241. The Battle of Legnica. European knights, the finest warriors of their age, slaughtered wholesale by Mongol tactics they couldn't comprehend. The stories that survived were nightmarish. Cities reduced to ash. Populations erased. An enemy that moved like lightning and killed without mercy. But defeat is history's greatest teacher. For 20 years, European military minds studied their conquerors' methods. They learned. They adapted. And when the Mongols returned in 1259, they found a very different enemy waiting for them. Duke Bolesław V of Poland, known as the Chaste, had spent years preparing for the Mongols' return. His strategy was revolutionary in its simplicity. If the Mongol war machine depended on living off the land, what if there was no land to live off? 3 months before the invasion, Polish forces began the most extensive scorched earth campaign in medieval history. Every field burned to ash. Every well contaminated. Every blade of grass for 50 miles destroyed. But the masterstroke was biological warfare. Polish forces left behind beautiful horses as gifts, horses infected with glanders, a highly contagious disease that spreads through equine populations like wildfire. December 1259. Mongol General Nogai Khan crosses into Poland with 30,000 mounted warriors. His scouts report something unprecedented. The land ahead isn't conquered, it's dead. Empty villages, blackened fields, poisoned wells with bloated carcasses floating in them. The Polish population has vanished like smoke, taking everything, even their dead, with them. By the second week, the gift horses begin showing symptoms. Mongol horses start coughing blood, their necks swelling with abscesses. Not understanding disease transmission, the Mongols move sick horses to their reserves, spreading the infection throughout their entire herd. Within 3 weeks, horses are dying by the hundreds daily. Then the Polish ghosts begin their work. Duke Bolesław hadn't recruited knights. He'd recruited peasants, men who knew the forests, who could move silently in winter, who had spent 20 years dreaming of revenge. These weren't soldiers. They were hunters, given simple instructions. Kill Mongols like you would kill wolves. No honor. No mercy. Just death. Polish raiders wait for Mongol camps to settle into deep sleep. Then they strike, but not at the warriors. They cut the throats of every horse and vanish into the forest. A Mongol warrior might wake to find his 5 horses dead, their blood turning snow into crimson slush, with no enemy in sight. Without horses, in enemy territory in winter, he's already dead. It just takes a few frozen days for him to realize it. One Mongol unit of 500 men woke to find every single horse dead, arranged in a circle around their camp. The Poles had done it so silently that not even the sentries had noticed. The psychological warfare continues. The Poles leave abandoned supply caches, barrels of mead, sacks of grain, preserved meats, all laced with just enough poison to cause agonizing illness but not immediate death. Mongol warriors, the conquerors of empires, find themselves weakened by bloody dysentery, seeing threats in every shadow. One Mongol captain writes desperately to Nogai Khan, "The enemy is nowhere and everywhere. We conquer empty villages and rule over ghosts. My men see demons in the forest. The horses eat each other's manies from hunger. This land is cursed." By January 1260, the situation is catastrophic. The surviving Mongol horses, those not killed by disease or Polish raiders, are reduced to eating bark, their own dung, and eventually each other. Warriors who once lived on mare's milk and horse blood watch their mounts collapse from starvation. Then comes Sandomierz, where the trap finally snaps shut. Duke Bolesław has been retreating for weeks, always just out of reach, drawing the Mongols deeper into dead land. The Mongols, now down to perhaps 15,000 effective warriors from their original 30,000, think they have him cornered at Sandomierz. They're wrong. The Mongols approach to find the Polish army in traditional formation, knights in front, infantry behind, banners flying. It looks like the kind of formal European battle they've crushed 100 times. Nogai Khan orders traditional Mongol tactics, feigned retreat to draw out the knights, then devastating arrow volleys. But when the Mongol cavalry begins their feigned retreat, something unprecedented happens. The Polish knights don't follow. They just stand there, shields raised, waiting. The Mongols wheel around for their arrow assault and discover why. Their weakened horses stumble into hidden trenches covered by thin snow. Horses break their legs by the dozens, throwing riders into concealed pits filled with sharpened stakes. The trap has been perfectly designed to counter every Mongol advantage. As the Mongol cavalry flounders, Polish crossbowmen emerge from concealed positions. But they don't aim at the warriors, they systematically shoot every horse. The Mongols watch their mounts die, realizing they're now infantry in enemy territory, hundreds of miles from support. Then the peasants arrive. Thousands of them, armed not with swords but with farming tools. Flails for grain, hooks for hay, hammers for horseshoes. They've been promised payment for Mongol ears, thumbs, and heads. What follows is less a battle than a harvest. The Mongol warriors, trained from birth for mounted combat, try to form defensive circles on foot. But they're exhausted, sick, wearing armor designed for horseback. The peasants swarm them, using scythes to cut tendons, flails to crush skulls, hooks to drag warriors down where they can be finished with hammers and stones. The ear harvest, as it becomes known, lasts 3 hours. Peasants work in teams, turning killing into craft. Some collect fingers for luck charms. Others negotiate over who gets to claim commanders' heads for the bounty. It's the harvest they've waited 20 years for. Nogai Khan himself survives, but only because Duke Bolesław wants him to. The Mongol general is stripped, painted with pig's blood, and forced to ride backwards on a donkey through 20 Polish villages while peasants pelt him with dung. In each village, locals are allowed to take a small piece of him, a finger joint, an ear tip, but not enough to kill. By the final village, he's mutilated beyond recognition. They castrate him and send him back to the Golden Horde as a message. This is what Europe does to invaders now. Meanwhile, at Kressenbrunn in Austria, King Ottokar II of Bohemia conducts his own campaign. The Bohemians have developed new tactics, pike squares that horses can't penetrate, crossbowmen creating kill zones, heavy cavalry in improved armor that Mongol arrows can't pierce. The killing at Kressenbrunn is so complete that Ottokar orders his men to stop taking ears. There are too many to count. Instead, they pile Mongol heads into pyramids along trade routes. Over 50 pyramids, each containing hundreds of heads. But the most horrifying fate awaits Mongol stragglers who flee into the Carpathian Mountains. Winter in the Carpathians is brutal even with supplies. The 3,000 Mongol survivors find themselves trapped in mountain passes with no food, no horses, temperatures dropping to -30. Polish and Hungarian villagers have blocked passes, destroyed bridges, and now they wait. Starvation in mountains follows a predictable pattern. First the leather, then frozen horse carcasses, then bark and pine needles. Then, by week 4, each other. Hungarian patrols find Mongol camps where the occupants have clearly turned cannibal. Bodies butchered with precision, major muscle groups removed, bones cracked for marrow. One warrior's recovered journal contains a chilling confession. "We ate Timur yesterday. He was my brother-in-arms for 6 years. Tomorrow they will eat me." The mountains are full of demons that look like peasants. The mountain villages watch and wait. When Mongol groups become weak enough, peasants attack with hunting bows and boar spears. But mostly they just let winter do the work. Come spring, they find frozen Mongols perfectly preserved in their final agony. The few hundred who survive the mountains face a final horror, the slave markets. Venetian merchants buy these broken, starving survivors who've been reduced to cannibalism, selling them to Egyptian Mamluks who find ironic satisfaction in enslaving the sons of conquerors. Mongol boys under 10 are castrated and sold as eunuchs. Mongol girls are sold to brothels across the Mediterranean. Back in Poland, Duke Bolesław orders a special monument, a church built with Mongol bones ground into the mortar, walls decorated with skulls arranged in crosses. They call it the Church of Divine Vengeance. The military impact is decisive. Of 30,000 invaders, perhaps 500 make it back to the Golden Horde, many missing ears, fingers, telling tales of poisoned earth and enemies without honor. When news spreads, it triggers what historians call the Mongol Hunt of 1261 to 1263. Every minor European lord wants Mongol trophies. The Teutonic Knights send cleansing parties deep into Eastern Europe. Hungarian barons line their borders with impaled Mongol scouts. The Golden Horde makes one last attempt in 1262, sending 10,000 riders to raid Poland. They make it 30 miles past the border before discovering that Polish peasants have developed an early warning system using church bells. Within hours, every village for 50 miles knows they're coming. The earth is scorched ahead of them. Wells are poisoned. Wolf packs of mounted peasants shadow them constantly, striking at night, killing sentries, stealing horses, then vanishing into forests. The Mongol commander reports, "We are not fighting an army, but the land itself. Every tree hides an archer. Every stream is poisoned. Every village is empty but watching. This is not war. It is being slowly digested by a hostile country." After 2 weeks, the Mongols retreat. As they withdraw, Polish children, some as young as 7, stand on hills throwing rocks at the retreating army while singing mocking songs. The Mongols, conquerors of the greatest empires on earth, are being laughed at by children. The Golden Horde never attempts another serious invasion of Central Europe. The transformation is complete. In 1241, Europe trembled before Mongol horsemen. By 1263, European peasants wear necklaces of Mongol finger bones and drink from Mongol skulls while their children play games called Hunt the Tartar with captured helmets. The myth of Mongol invincibility is dead, killed by farmers with pitchforks who learned that the secret to defeating monsters was to become something worse. Stories filter back along the Silk Road. The great Mongol warriors defeated by European farmers. Their generals castrated like livestock. Their children sold in markets. Their bones ground into church mortar. Other peoples under Mongol rule begin to wonder, if Polish peasants could destroy the invincible army with poisoned wells and farming tools, what were they so afraid of? Within a generation, the Mongol Empire begins its long fragmentation. The Yuan dynasty in China falls. The Ilkhanate in Persia collapses. The Golden Horde shrinks and divides. The spell is broken. Today, archaeologists still find mass graves along Carpathian passes. Mongol warriors who died of starvation and cold, their bones bearing teeth marks from cannibalism. Polish museums display the preserved harvest tools, scythes and flails modified specifically for killing dismounted Mongols, passed down through families as heirlooms. The Mongols called their empire the eternal blue sky. But they discovered that even the eternal sky ends at the edge of a Polish peasant's scythe. They taught Europe how to be monsters. Europe learned the lesson too well. The last Mongol to leave Poland alive in 1263 was a young scout named Kutuz, missing his ears, nose, and fingers. He lived another 40 years, warning every young warrior about the land where the earth itself was poisoned and farmers wore necklaces of Mongol bones. He ended every warning the same way. "They say we were invincible. We were not. We were just men far from home who learned that teaching sheep to be wolves means one day the sheep will eat you." He was right. The Mongols had created their own executioners.